G'day Bomber fans, it is back. I did this last year, I'm going to do it again. I'm going to create my ideal Essendon lineup that we would use in a game right now, full of the players currently on our list. So that includes anyone linked with a trade, even players confirmed to be moving away from the club are going to be involved in this best 23. This is a pre-trade period lineup showing us what it will look like before big changes are made. And then after the trade period, before the draft, after the draft, I'll keep these videos coming. I love this as a concept. It isn't my idea, I should say that. I remember True Eagle doing this and it gave me inspiration. So shout out to Jesse from True Eagle, one of the very best in the business in the YouTube content creation scene. But no, I really like this concept because it gives us fans a pretty clear idea in time as to what our list is looking like before major changes are made. And then after those changes are made, it gives us an idea as to how big the impact of them are. So here it is. Here is my best 23 for the Bombers before the trade period kicks off. So we start with the back line, which for me, for the most part, is pretty much set. I think if Essendon had a full list or catalogue to choose from, you've got a pretty cemented 5 or 6 names back there. And that's been the case for the last, even last 2 years, really. The only real sticking point is whether Andy McGrath plays down back or in the midfield. And given the fact I've got him as our captain next year, and I liked what he did late in the season, I'm going to be moving him higher up the ground in this discussion. So down back, you've got Jordan Ridley, Ben Mackay, and Zach Reid as the key defenders. I really like that trio a lot. I think they're all very good players individually, and they're very successful when they're allowed to play with each other. I saw somewhere, and I don't know how accurate this is, but when those three had played games together, we had won all but 2 games. I think it was 6-1, 2 lost. That's the record I saw. I think they really complement each other well. Mackay was kind of used more as that one-on-one defender at times, which allowed Reid to roam freely and intercept, which he did really well. Same with Ridley on ground level a bit more. He's a bit of a jack of all trades. And then there were sometimes when there were matchups that didn't suit either of those players, it got switched around. I thought the Port game was a great example of that when Georgiades was proving to be a bit too mobile for Mackay, so the switch was made for Reid to position himself on him, and that kind of allowed Mackay to intercept a bit more later in that game with less congestion around him. So it definitely works having those 3 as taller options. It's just about getting them on the park, because all 3 of those players only managed 10 games individually. They all played 10 games. Mackay played 10 in a row before he had that foot stepped on. Ridley battled concussion early and then multiple soft tissue injuries, and then Reid had that big hamstring setback after a really promising start. But I like what we see there from those players. If our high performance team can really work some miracles in the off season, we actually have a pretty solid starting foundation for our key defensive zone. Throw in Lewis Hayes as well, who's got his ACL, but I thought he'd be challenging for the first team pretty strongly if he was fit. He obviously does have that knee injury, but he looked really good in his first game, and he's been playing great reserves footy before that injury. But after that, there's work to be done. I don't even really know who we've got as key defenders after that. We do need to bring in coverage. That's pretty clear to me. I'll be worried if we don't. Lockie Blackiston, he battled hard, but he's a ruck. If Lockie Blackiston is playing key defence in 2026, something has gone wrong. You then have the smaller types. Archie Roberts will be in that back pocket. I did like seeing him in the midfield later in the year in patches, but I don't think there's really room for a full-time role if we're fully fit. And if McGrath is to feature higher up the field, which I've got him doing here, we will need someone competitive in D50, and that is Archie Roberts. And that's also where Redmond comes in. I do like the idea of him running and using his legs to bring the ball up the field like he did in 2023, but he can defend, and that's something we really need in our D50 right now. The last player, this is where it's interesting, because I think if McGrath is here, it's pretty obviously a clear back 6, but if he's playing up the field, who do you have in that defense to join the others? I've got Zach Johnson. I think he's definitely lacking a bit. We're also, we're lacking in precision by foot. Ridley's great, Reid is great, but they're juggling exiting D50 with defending their direct opponent. And I do think Zach Johnson has a lot to work on with the defensive side of his game. But with a full preseason and extended sessions around fitness, I see no reason why Johnson can't be a first-team player next year. And we got to remember, this guy was injured throughout his opening preseason this year. He joined the VFL a bit later, had clear deficiencies when he started playing AFL footy with his defending. It just isn't as good as other players. But what is good is that right boot. He is a lovely kick of the footy, a lovely user, and a lovely decision maker. He's already already one of the best kicks in our team. I'd really like to see him play senior footy regularly, and also he is by the youngest in the comp, by the way, so that'll obviously change after the draft, but as of right now, he is the youngest in the competition, so I think there are pretty clear reasons for him being slightly behind on development. That is fine, especially because he was picked 70, so I'm expecting a big preseason for Zach Johnson. He's the one I'll be watching to kind of break into that first team, because every year there's one. In 2025 it was Archie Roberts, I guess Kako and Clark too, but I think 2026 I'm pretty confident if he gets to work, Zach Johnson will be that guy. Now anyone else on the outer, not really. Jackson Pryor maybe. I've always said he's more likely a good solid depth option than anything though. I like him on the list for that reason. He's my boy, but I like him more because of that age profile and the cost and what he does when asked to play a role. He's a really solid role player. That's what I think he is. But this time next year, I'm assuming Zach Johnson would be ahead in calculations. We'll move on to the midfield. Out on the wings, I've got Xavier Dersma and Angus Clark. Now, depending on what changes we make in the trade period, we may be looking to bring in a different wingman, which would allow Clark to maybe sit back on halfback like he did as a junior. That wingman is Braden Fiorini. I do like Clark on the wing though. I like his tank. He's the fittest at the club. He's really hard working back and forth. And Dersma himself is a super underrated player for us. I'm recording this on the Tuesday before the best and fairest. I have no clue when I'm going to release this video, but I'm going to assume that Dersma gets a top 5 finish. I thought he had a really strong season, and in a year dominated by injuries, it was really great for Dersma to get a clean run, especially considering he's battled soft tissue injury problems in the past. And now this is where it gets a bit, Zach Merritt, I mean, I don't know. Obviously, he might be with Hawthorn next year. We know that. If he does stay, we'd be silly to play him anywhere other than the midfield. I think there's... I don't know. And by the way, for me, there is 100% room for him to stay with the club. Like, ties aren't completely cut. He's about to win his 6th best and fairest. He'll attend the ceremony. He's our best player. If he's forced to his contract, he simply continues to play the footy he did before. And there would be no reason to suggest he wouldn't be at the same level. Because if he was to sulk and underperform, the Hawks wouldn't want to sign him the next season. So even if he stays and wants to move, he's going to be playing good footy. What I will say, I don't think there's a world where I would understand him being captain. I think it's best for both parties if he's kind of that on-field leader and not the official captain, that lead by example type, not the face of the club. I think he's done a bit too much for that to be the case. We move on, and Sam Draper is leaving too. He's probably gone the day the free agency window opens. For the sake of these videos, I'm going to include him, kind of to show you guys how much the team changes. But as of right now, he is still an Essendon player. In a few days, he obviously isn't. And if for some reason he was to turn around and stay with the club, he would be our main ruckman. I actually think with the ruck rules changing the way they're about to, he would be the perfect solo ruck, and it could kind of swap out with Peter Wright up forward. But I really like Draper as a player. Ideal world, he would have stayed, but I think we did the right thing by not offering overs. Sam Durham and Andy McGrath round out the midfield. There are other midfielders on the bench as well. I'm not saying these guys are better options than them. It would probably differ week to week as well, but McGrath's our captain. You can't put your captain on the bench, and Durham is Durham. You can't list him on the bench either. I'll talk about the other guys in a second. Actually, let's name them now. You've got Caldwell, who's obviously in our best 23. He's on the bench. Same with Parrish. When he's fit, he's on the bench. It's the other names that I worry about, because you've got Elijah Sardis, whether he can take that next step, and you know, I don't know. It's tough to say. After that, you've got Hobbs and Setterfield, who may not even be with the team next year. We're probably looking at some draftees taking spots, which I think is needed, because, you know, our midfield is lacking a bit in depth. We've got more options in the forward line as well, but, you know, during a rebuild, the midfield, it's not as good as it should be, and you need some young players in there, because unfortunately Hobbs and Sardis weren't what we thought they'd be. But yeah, this engine room does look a lot better with Draper and Merritt there. Whether it stays like that, it won't for Draper, but for Merritt, we'll wait and see. Onto the forward line, you've got Nick Martin, who is, I mean, he's obviously going to miss a lot of next year, or most of next year, with that knee injury. He's another I can see playing lots in the midfield, which is good, especially if Merritt leaves, because he's a star. I think if Merritt leaves, he's our best player, and he's probably the closest to being an A-grader. He's our vice-captain, I think, if Merritt leaves, but I like him starting on a flank. The closer he is to goal in the forward half, the better off the Bombers are. Perkins on the other side, I still think there is a player here, and we saw it late in the year. He got a bit better early in the year as well. He was playing good footy. He obviously had that form slump halfway through where he was dropped from the team and looked honestly shocking, but I think we should be persisting with him. He's shown what he can do at his very best. He can tear a game apart on his day. It's just about finding that consistency for a player who is so good at his best, but can't match it week to week. You've got Kako as the small forward. I do have other smalls on the bench, but I feel like right now, with what we have, the only small forward that I'm comfortable with starting every game is Isaac Kako. Obviously, we've got some academy kids coming through the draft, not on the list yet, but our small stocks are pretty thin. I've included both guys that are older on the bench. You guys would know who they are, but they're not certified starters. They'd only be playing because they're listed. It's as simple as that. Both out of contract next year. Both decent at their best, but yeah, for me, Kako's the one. And then the keys, you've got Nate Caddy, Peter Wright, and Kyle Langford. You could make the argument for Archie May. I think if we're trying to win games, it makes more sense to go with Peter Wright, especially because I prefer a one-ruck setup, so Wright can pinch hit when Draper rests forwards, even though he won't be playing next year. You do also have Tom Edwards and Liam McMahon. I don't see either as first-team players. I think there is more room for Edwards to be that guy because he's got that tank and work rate, whereas McMahon for me is a solid depth in the background option. But yeah, the forward line is... it definitely needs a bit of work, we'll say that. It is not very strong at all. And the bench, you've got Jai Caldwell. He is on the bench by default. He's a very important player for us in the engine room. There's same with Darcy Parish below him if he's fit. Those two, if they're fit, they're certain starters, and the bench is just a default option. But yeah, we've seen how good these guys are. Both have some injury issues. Parish more so than Caldwell. You've then got Gresham, Jones, and Matt Guelphy. Those three are... those spots are uncertain, and it probably shows the lack of depth that the Bombers have, because I think if we had more players, right, and more talent in our first team, those guys would genuinely be handy depth players, and that's why it's really important to hit the draft early and get some good young players in to replace those guys, because then if you get players to replace them in the starting team, having Gresham, Guelphy, and Jones as depth, it puts you in a much stronger position, because I think all of them on their day are good players. I still like Jones. I think he's developing well on the wing. I could see him being a handy player if he keeps going. Gresham and Guelphy can play a role pretty well on their day. One's a bit inconsistent, one's a bit maybe limited to what he can do. But yeah, on this list, there are obviously two big names linked to moves. Draper is going. The next time I do one of these videos, he will not be included, and Zach Merritt may be gone too. If we're replacing them, Merritt, I don't know how you do. You can't really. Draper, I mean, Nick Bryan's waiting in the wings, but injured. Speaking of injuries, Bryan may not return by round 1. Same with Tom Edwards. Those guys won't be rushed back. You've obviously got Lewis Hayes and Nick Martin with their ACLs, and they'll be later in the year. But yeah, that is our best 23 before the trade period. Do we like it? Probably not. I think there is definitely room for improvement. But the good news is a lot of the players on the outside are young, and those players will get another preseason to bulk up and maybe push for first team selection. I'm looking at Reece Unwin, Jaden Newen, even Kale Jarine. But yeah, the point of this really is to show us how we would look if changes weren't going to be made. And clearly, I don't think we have enough talent on our list to really be pushing for a flag, and this exercise, if anything, shows us that the rebuild is the correct way forward, and maybe after draft night in November, we'll do this exercise again, and the team will look even younger. It's already pretty young, it's dominated mainly by guys under 24, 25. You've got Roberts, Reed, Johnson, Clark, Dersma, Martin, Caddy, Kako, Durham, Perkins. Those guys are all still very young in their footballing journeys, and with 2 or 3 top 10 picks, I think we've got good young talent as it is. What I'm worried about is that senior talent leading the way and making the year bearable while we build for the future. But that is all. I'll have another one of these videos out after the trade period and after the draft as well. Cheers for watching, Bomber fans. Let me know what you think down below. What would you have changed to this team? Let me know in the comments below. Make sure you like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, and as always, go Bombers.